if let's say the average rungs a human climbs is X, like let's say 3, to go way above the average, I feel you have to come from 2 places. And like at MIT, I was like, dude, my only social time is working with the guys. I am like, we are here to work. We are not here to, we are not a family. We are a IPL team or a football team. In business families, you can either be run by the business or you can run the business. And that's why I also learned like too much intensity is not. I would say I had like a very, very idyllic childhood. And
Learn how to learn. That's a thought.
She went to Bombay, got a teaching degree, came back and started a nursery school just for me.
Oh wow!
Like 9 to 5 hours intense. I was probably one of the most intense people at Amazon.
I can vouch for that.
Yeah. So there was like I would never depend on anyone. I would never ask for help. That's how you get Parsis. And yeah, there's 100,000 left. We barely make it as a religion. I think soon we'll be a cult. And
Fuck the tiger, save the flower.
Yes. And yeah, please save us.
Hello everyone, welcome to the Wide World View podcast. Wide World View is my effort to help people build emotionally sustainable careers through personal and social insights. I'm Anmol Didan. In my past life, I used to be a behavioral researcher at Google for about 11 years. In the last couple of years or so, I've redesigned my life to be an author, investor, entrepreneur, and live a life of variety. I have a book coming out on the 10th of February 2026 called Burnout Highway, which looks at societal burnout, causes for burnout at a collective level, but empowering solutions that you can employ at an individual level. I'm also a life coach and help people build emotionally sustainable careers one-on-one through Wide World View. So if you're interested, if this resonates with you, please do reach out. Today I have one of my dearest friends with me, Kaivan Wadia. We've known each other for more than half our lives, met back in college in India, and both our journeys have brought us to New York. So I'm really looking forward to this. Kaivan, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
In my only life, no past life and present life, but I have been what people would describe as a corporate mouse slave, whatever. But grew up in a small town in Porbandar and then was in boarding school since the age of 7. And I think that defined a lot of what I did. And then journeyed all over India. Then we were in Bombay together. Then I did my undergrad and then we landed up in New York about 8 years after Bombay. And just came to the US about 10 years ago and been here ever since.
So today we're going to touch upon Kaivan's life. He talked about himself as a corporate slave, but I think he's one of the most emotionally sustainable corporate. You're not a slave anymore. Looking forward to unpacking his incredible career, life path, perspective, which is quite unique as well. But let's start from the start. What was Porbandar like? What was growing up as a Parsi like? And for people who don't know Parsis, there are only 100,000, 200,000 left. Kaivan comes from a very rich culture. So talk to us a little bit about Porbandar, Parsi, and what your early life was like.
So, to take the Parsi part first, Parsis are these subculture of like the religion is Zoroastrianism. They fled Persia, came to India, so they kind of took Persian culture, Indian culture, mixed it, and that's how you get Parsis. And there's 100,000 left. We barely make it as a religion. I think soon we'll be a cult. And
fuck the tiger, save the flower.
Yes. And please save us. But it's a very unique, rich culture. I think obviously as such a small culture, it affects you in the sense that you want to keep it alive, you want to keep it going. You feel not the stress, but the burden of like continuation and carrying on something that might go extinct. Besides that, growing up in Porbandar Porbandar is a small town. Small for India terms, it's 400,000 people, but like in India, that's peanuts. And classic small town. I would say I had like a very, very idyllic childhood. Like we had 5 families. We were the only Parsis in town. All 5 of the families were related to each other, all cousins. We lived on one street, 5 families opposite each other in 5 houses. all of us cousins went to the same school. Our parents went to the same school. So very like beautiful. Like we were 3 minutes from the beach, and like it's a western-facing beach. So beautiful sunsets, which we used to go to every evening, and just like in some ways, it's like almost a movie childhood, right? Like everyone was happy, everyone was jolly. There was no cribbing, and also because we were all in boarding school, we used to come home for like 2 months a year, and it was all like a combination of Indianness of shoving everything under the rug, but it's also like you're here for 2 months. Let's not fight. Let's just be happy. Let's make the most of this valuable time we have.
Was the boarding school decision tough on you, or at the
For
time?
me, no, because I was the youngest amongst 8 on my dad's side. All 8 of us cousins, all of them were already in school. So for me, it was like, when am I going to go? Now, my brother is the eldest, so he was the first to go, and for him, it was difficult. Like, for him, he was the first in our generation, so he felt homesick and all. I did feel homesick when I went, but not as much, because, like, the dorm I was in, the monitor was my cousin. The lodge I was in, the head monitor was my cousin. Up top, 5 years elder, there are 2 brothers. One is my brother and one is another cousin. So I was
you're
like,
family in some
yeah, like all the teachers knew the Wadia kids. All the teachers knew my dad because they taught him. And so I was like, this just feels wrong. I think it was difficult for my mom. Like she needed, like my dad, I remember, told us that she needed like 3-4 visits to the school before she was convinced that Anosh, my brother, should go there. And the principal had to sit her down and explain why. But for them, I think for my dad, it was an easy decision. For my mom also, overall, it was an easy decision because there's no good school in Porbandar. If I had studied in Porbandar, I wouldn't be where I am. I just took. Like, it was so bad, my mom created a nursery. My brother went through like pre-kindergarten, and my mom hated it so much that he couldn't learn anything. He didn't learn English. She went to Bombay, got a teaching degree, came back and started a nursery school just for me.
Oh, wow.
So I was like the first
Just
student.
for you.
I was the first student. And she finally shut it down like at the start of the pandemic. So like for 20 years she kept
Oh, wow. See, I didn't know this. That's
it. Yeah. She kept it up for like this, and teaching also was kind of a passion for us. Like she still does it on the side, but not for work.
Your early education sounds quite like my childhood. We went all my cousins went to the same school. Dad went to the same school. My aunts taught at the same school, so everything came back home. But it wasn't a boarding school. Like I came back home, and so what was that? So talk to me about what was it like growing up as a minority, especially as a Parsi. How did that frame you?
In a lot of ways, I think. As a minority, early on, I knew we were a minority, but I never felt unnoticed. Right? In the sense that wherever I went, people knew what Parsis were. At least in Gujarat, everyone knew what Parsis were. Like even in Porbandar, like even though it was just 18 of us in 400,000, everyone knew what Parsis were somehow. I don't know why, but like everyone knew that these 18 idiots are Parsis. They do some weird shit on the side, but like, yeah. And even in Bombay, like Bombay was second home for us, and everyone just knew, I guess. So in that way, I never felt unnoticed. But I did feel like, okay, we are a minority. There's this unique culture we have that's like a mix of 2 different things between like Persian, Middle Eastern, and Indian. So it's very unique in terms of like customs, traditions, language, food. And I think it just like, it made you feel special in the sense that, okay, I'm part of this group that you just like very few are part of. And you also slowly, once you start growing up, felt the burden of like, in a good way, in that like, I want to keep this up, right? And like, I wish I could further it.
I mean, such a rich cultural heritage as well, from like food to some of the biggest industrialists in India are Parsis, and they've had like such a contributing, such a big part in terms of like this progress in India, from our first atomic bomb to our first nuclear reactor to the first cars we built, and the Tatas, the biggest hotel, the first hotel, 5-star hotel in the country, Taj, Bombay. So
I think that was, and I think some, like I've seen it with others, right? For some, it was very motivating. For me, it was very motivating. I was like, dude, you have to live up to this. Like people have set the bar high. And I felt like, yeah, why not? Like, if these guys can do it, I can do it. And it's part of the culture to just make sure you do well. And I think the other undertone for us always was a lot of like respect, integrity, and honesty. Like, it was a very like, there used to be this random joke that, oh, Bawas can't lie, they can't play poker, and stuff like that. Sorry, Bawas is the informal term for Parsis in India. And for me, it was a very like, first we used to just joke about it, then slowly it became like, no, this is something you have to like live by and you have to keep up. Otherwise, like, I remember like there was this friend of mine in Ahmedabad who said, dude, man, I for the first time met a Parsi who cheated me. And I was shocked. And I was like, yeah, but people do exist like that. Like, it's not one, it's full.
As a Sikh, that people say that about Sikhs as well, and Sardar is the Bawa equivalent for Sikhs. How did being a Parsi, like you talked about all these, big industrialists and the people who made it and have done such amazing things. How did that frame some of the North Stars of your life, especially at an early age?
I think it's very interesting. Like, Parsis are known for just doing well. Like, I don't think, like, many associated us with business, but that's not true. Like, I know a lot who just did very well in corporate careers, right? Or in government or in the army, like even Field Marshal Sam Manek, right? Like, in that sense. But I think it just, for me, the North Stars early on were just from a community perspective of just being good at what you do. Like, just go high, don't settle for less. And I think the otherwise, it was just my mom and dad in some sense were very like standard North Stars. Like, even in, like, it's in a small town in Porbandar, everyone just knew my dad and was like, everyone knows each other, but there's like, you can make out there's a certain difference of like how they perceive my dad versus my uncles, who are all related. And like, my uncles always thought of like the jovial, like, yeah, it's fun to hang out with Neville uncle, the Rice uncle, whatever. But like, when it comes to my dad, was like, yeah, it's fun to hang out with him, but he's also the most trustworthy. Like, when you want shit done, you go to him, right? And like, when you want a good opinion, you go to him. And so for me, it was very like, okay, that's the bar I want to set, right? Or the bar I want to reach. So I think that was early on the big North Star of like, okay, how do you be? And then the other thing I think from them I learned was always push yourself, but don't get too sad if you don't achieve something. Like, if you tried your best, be happy. Don't worry about like, things will happen. Things will go up, things will come down. You're not suffering. And thankfully, like, I'll say I've not really suffered in life. Like, that's been a blessing. A big blessing.
That's amazing perspective to, I think that perspective on the outcome doesn't matter as much. That, you need to just, like football coaches or any coaches in the world in sport talk about the process and falling in love with the process and not being too focused on the output. That perspective early on, especially in a developing country like India, where there's pressure for like engineer, doctor, and then supporting the family and all that stuff, I think it can really bias especially high achievers or kids who are perceived to be good academically. I didn't have as much of that, but there was like, I was the good kid in the family, so I always had that sort of kind of like soft pressure, so to speak, not like some of the other people we probably know of. Since you went to engineering college, you probably know more of those stories, but that perspective is amazing. So what affected you more in your early upbringing? Your family or your macro culture, or some of the, I don't know, institutionalism or discipline you might have learned in boarding school?
I think all of it. I think everything affects you in the end. Like, your environment is so important. Environment and exposure, I think, is so important. Boarding school is what gave me a lot of independence. I think a little too much independence. Not in a bad way. It's just in a way where I was like, I can just do everything myself. So there was like, I would never depend on anyone. I would never ask for help. And there's a certain badness to that, right? Like, just as a side topic, like, if your way, like my way of showing love is acts of service, and that's how I want it, but I will never let anyone do anything for me. So I'm like, I want this, but I'm going to preempt you doing it for me, because I'm independent. And then I'll be sad, like, oh, you're not doing anything. I'm like, dude, this is like a catch-22. So, like, I think that way some of it is bad. Other ways, I think early on, the influence was just home. I think home was a big influence, and boarding school was the early influence, I would say. And then for me, to be honest, the path was charted a little bit by my brother. Like, a little bit by my dad. My dad used to, like, in passing, sometimes mention, like, he did like, we had a family business which involved, like, maintaining and repairing air conditioners and a lot of heavy equipment. And my dad doesn't have it. Nobody in the family has an engineering. So it's all the mechanics know the stuff, but like, so all the
My dad as well, he's done so many things. I think a lot of businesses at that time was like that,
Yeah.
right?
And so my dad would always regret that, "Arey, I never did engineering, it would have helped me so much, this, that." So I think that put the like seed in my mind sometimes. And somehow I was just very good at programming. And so I was like, cool. And my brother did engineering. I saw him, he was actually not a great student. And I'm pretty sure he used to hate me because I was like better than him, even though I was 5 years younger. And but once he got into engineering, he just flourished. Like, he suddenly, all the nonsense subjects were gone, and suddenly he was like A+ student. And I was like, wow. So I was like, yeah, even I'll like it. And he kind of charted the path. I think a lot of my like, I always think of it this way, that life is a forest and you make your path. But my brother kind of cut through and I just followed behind.
Yeah.
I was like, half a trail is made,
Yeah.
I'm going to speed along that. And so, like, he went to Xavier's, I went to Xavier's. He went to engineering college with a chance of going abroad. I went to an engineering college with the chance of
Talk about what engineering
Yeah.
college
So,
you
like,
went to as well.
he went to like Manipal, where he did like a twinning program, 2 years in India and 2 years abroad, and then you kind of just transfer abroad to the US. But he, after he did it, because he's 5 years older, he'd done the whole thing before I started undergrad. He was like, try to do something where you can come abroad but do the degree from one school. So then I went to SRM, which is near Chennai, where there was the ability to come to the US to go to either Carnegie Mellon or MIT or stuff. So I thought, sure, let's try that. And thankfully I got in, like, was able to get in and spent a year at MIT, which itself was like very transformational. Like, I realized, like, damn, there are, like, till then I felt I was smart. Then I realized, no, I'm not smart. There are much smarter people. Like, I remember my roommate at MIT was a double major in physics and math. And I am a computer science student, and he knew more about computer science than I did. I was like, wait, I'm a third year. Like, what is happening here? His graphics card went out, I remember, in his laptop, and he fixed it. He like boiled it in the oven or so. I don't even remember what he did. I was like, kya ho raha hai? Like, I was like, screw this. I'm never coming back to this school. And that's why I also learned, like, too much intensity is not good. Like, I loved my year there. It was great, but it was so intense, and people took pride in, like, being intense in the wrong way. Like, people took pride in, like, oh, we pulled 4 all-nighters this week, and just to, like, finish problem sets. It's not like they were out dancing or anything. It's like, dude, oh yeah, like, I spent one night studying. I don't need to do this 4 nights a week. Like, I want to have a life. And I think that was the other thing. From very early on, we were very social. Like, small town, anyway, you're social. Plus 5 families living, like, within a minute's walk of everyone else. So it's like a very social upbringing where you do things outside work, right? And again, because of small town, people come home early. Afternoon 1 to 4, everyone is at home. They're sitting, lunch, chit chat, nap. So very influenced by, like, I need my social time. And like at MIT, I was like, dude, my only social time is working with the guys. Like, dude, this is not for me. And so when I had to decide masters, I was like, no, I'm not going back there. I went to UT Austin, partly also because of tradition. I feel like my dad went to Texas for masters, my brother went to A&M, so I was like, screw it, man, everyone's gone to Texas. Texas is nice, let's go to Texas.
So many things I want to unpack further, but and that explains why you are like a village headman in New York as well. I joke that he's like the headman of our entire friends community here. He gets people together every week, and like, it's literally a village. So, you know, that explains a lot. But so were there any checkpoints in the middle where there was like some regret of following behind, or like what was the expectation versus reality equation of that path as you were traversing it to to up to the point of Amazon
I think early on, I don't think there was a big expectation reality mismatch. Maybe a little. Like I'm trying to think. Did school, came to Xavier's. My goal was to get into Xavier's. Got in,
That's where we met, by the way.
Yeah.
Xavier's Mumbai.
and got in there. Had a good 2 years. I think there was a little bit, not when I was there, but in retrospect, I felt I did a bad job of using Bombay in those 2 years. I was a very like homebody, like chill. I'd also just come from boarding school, and I was like, dude, I was enjoying a different kind of independence. So I'd have this whole house to myself, do whatever I want, no routine. So I think I slacked off a little there, and I
You were
remember-
17, dude. Like, how are you looking back like that?
and I think even my dad was like, dude, you're like not doing much. And so I was like, that's okay. But beyond that, I think I just wanted to follow, kind of get into engineering. I knew very early on, like in 8th standard, that okay, I'm good at programming and I like it. I like making video games. That's what got me interested. And I was like, yeah, let's follow this path. Let's try and make video games. And got into college. All of that was set. And I don't think at that point there was any expectation reality mismatch. The one part there after Xavier's was I was trying to get into a certain college. I think that was the first time I like really failed. I was like, I wanted to get into bits. Bits. And I remember I didn't get in at all. Like I just bungled the paper completely. And I got into SRM and I was like a little like, oh, first time. But I was like, it's okay. We'll figure it out. MIT is an option from SRM, so let's figure that out. And did that. But post that, when I came here for my master's and before I started the Amazon job, I think that's when I realized like, yeah, I love engineering, but I would have loved to be exposed to some other stuff. Like we were exposed to business, but everyone in our family was like, yeah, you can do business, you don't need to do BCom. Oh, they are like, this is the most useless
BCom
degree.
is Bachelor's of Commerce
Yeah.
for our American audience.
Yeah, like this is the most useless degree. Don't do it. Just go do something else. You can learn business on the job. Like, don't do this stupidity. Maybe do an MBA, but that's later. Do some more technical or more in-depth undergrad.
Yeah.
And like where you actually learn how to learn.
Yeah. Fair enough.
And
Learn how to learn. That's a thought. For,
yeah. And so because otherwise they're like, yeah, BCom, there was no learning. There's actually like nothing. And so like you learn how to research, how to problem solve, anything like that. And so that was there. So yeah, I didn't get into bits, went to SI. That was the first kind of where I was like, okay, didn't achieve what I wanted to achieve. And then once I was in my master's, I was like, I didn't explore it, right? Like in retrospect, I feel I would have loved to explore law and teaching. Teaching, I know I would have never chosen as a career because I think I wanted more financial this like freedom in my life, and I think teaching was, and like for me, teaching would have been like school teaching or lecturing, not classic American or Indian professors which you are doing research on the side. No, my passion there was more around like just teaching and like mentoring and stuff like that. So there's not a lot of, unfortunately, not a lot of money in it, and so I was like, I would have never done that. But law would have been very interesting. Like I would have really loved law, I think, at that point if I had gotten exposed to it. So I feel a lot of it is just exposure in some sense.
So how did you go about planning the different components of your path? Like, did you just like you said you were pretty happy with, you didn't really have regrets through the checkpoints. Did you stumble into that, or are you too similar to your brother and you like?
I think I am an optimization of my brothers. So
That's funny.
I think in so many ways, like in personality. When I say optimization, I don't mean I'm better than him. He is much better than me in the things that matter. But in the things of like how to run your life or how to kind of what decisions to make, I saw him and I just corrected. Like I think personality wise and emotions wise, he's way better. And I think that's important. Very important. I think that's a very late learning for me. But
Better in what way?
just he's much more communicative. He's like what I call the emotional soul of our family. I am the practical soul of our family. That is, even today, amongst all my cousins, mom side, dad side, if things unneeded, parents, uncles, everyone calls me and is like, hey, we need this done. Right? But when they
You're
want
the
to talk,
taskmaster.
when they want to talk, it's still my brother. When they want to this, it's my brother. Whereas when they want to get shit done, that's when I come. And so it's a very different thing. But yeah, coming back to what you're asking, in terms of how I decided, partly it was my brother, partly it was just like certain milestones just help you. Like, for example, I knew I was good at programming because that's just something I like intuitively picked up in like 6th, 7th, 8th. And at the end of 10th standard, again, small community, the Parsis do this like holiday program for the youth post 10th standard. Like 200 Parsis who have just passed 10th grade come together in Bombay for a month. And it's
Parsis have a fun life.
they come together and they do a month-long like program where there's like aptitude tests, there's people who come in and lecture and give you career guidance, there's like games, there's cultural activities, religious studies, everything. It's just a month of like, let's just get 200 people together. And during that, we had an aptitude test, and it just confirmed what I knew. They were like, yeah, your programming skills are good, like you have good analytical skills, this is where you should go. And I was like, yeah, I was anyway thinking of engineering, so it just confirmed that I should take science. Took that. Then when I got into engineering, very early on, for some reason, I liked video games to like develop them. I just found it very cool. Okay, oh shit, it can be okay. It is cool. So I was like, yeah, let's do that. So I'd done somewhere I had done some course of like, I developed that snake game somewhere. I don't remember whether it was Porbandar or Bombay. But did that. So then I was like, okay, let's look at an engineering college, which will give me an opportunity to get to the US, to get into video game development, because that's where the video games were developed at that time. There was not much in India. So I was like, that's how I was thinking when my brother went. But then my brother was like, don't do this. It's not really that good. And so I went to SRM. I was like, okay, SRM has this tie-up with CMU. CMU is like, at that time, the foremost for video game development. They had this actual lab just for video game development. And I was like, let's go. And I entered and the CMU program got cancelled. But MIT was there. So when I went to MIT, I did a lot of video game development courses. And just like, I was like, okay, this is... Somehow for me, it was always like, what's the goal in front of you? Just plan 1 or 2 years and try to hit that goal. Like, I never at that point used to think extreme long.
You kept things simple as well.
Yeah, I didn't at that time think extreme long term. Like, what do I want in life was never a thing. It's just like, yeah, this is whatever. And so, did that. So it just fell into place in some sense. Then I was like, okay, came back to India, worked for a year with her. Again, there I was just lucky. Like, my parents knew that, okay, I'm interested in all this. I searched up a company in Bombay. Someone kind of knew the CEO at that company, so I got an interview. I was able to get in, worked there for a year. He used me a lot. He used to underpay me massively.
He might watch this.
Because he knew I was like...
Games too, right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't blame him. He knew I was living in Bombay rent-free, expenses free, and any money he gave me was basically pocket money. So... he was like, okay, this is what you need to enjoy yourself in Bombay. If you have no rent, no nothing to do. So he used to pay me peanuts. I remember I used to get like 15 or 20K a month.
I turned Google at that about that much, 21,000 a month.
So I was like, okay. But then when I was leaving at the end of the year, that's when he suddenly upped to this. I was like, no man, I'm going for my master's. You knew I was here only for a year, so remember. And so did that, just luckily fell into it in some sense. And then I chose UT Austin. One, like I said, a little bit of like Texas romanticizing. The other one was like UT Austin also was a big video game development school. And so joined there. Again, got into it in terms of I did my internship with another startup, Jolly Entertainment. That was really fun. It was like proper startup experience. Like the GameStone one also was a startup, but it was a 50% startup. So you felt like a proper office and everything. This one was like 8 people in an apartment coding. Like we used to literally rent a 2-bedroom apartment and code.
It does sound like fun.
And so I enjoyed it, but that's when I realized I actually don't want to do video game development. Because I realized that, and this comes back to the social aspect, I think, is every Monday we would come in and we would be like, okay, what did you do on the weekend? And 7 out of 8 of them would be like, I played this game and I like completed so many levels and this, that. And they would come to me and I'd be like, oh, shit. I checked out this new restaurant. I went and swam. I was in the pool for half the day. And this. and I met up with friends. We cooked a nice dinner, and so I was just like, okay, I don't think this vibes with me in that sense. And so I was like, screw it. And then I was also like, I've worked in startups for like a year and a half, 2 years. Let me see what else out there. And so then I was like, okay, I got an Amazon offer. I remember it was on Valentine's Day actually. Yeah, so like I read it when we were on the date, and it was a beautiful day actually.
Yeah.
And then I decided, yeah, let's just stick with Amazon.
So we'll get into your journey post Amazon in a bit, but I do want to kind of touch upon something you touched upon in your journey as well. In the book, something I talk about is making your values your anchors, and a values audit, where you should continuously audit your values and what are your unique values and what do you want to live by. And I think something that I talk about in the book as well, to like help people understand what their values are or what they were drawn to most. Most of us actually know early. Like I knew early I had a bent towards economics, photography. If you remember, when I was 16, 17, I loved our economics professor, and used to have a lot of chats with her about economics in general. So I knew I was always interested in that before. So in the book, I talk about how you should explore, go back to what you felt at that time, before your path biased you in terms of the finances or the practicalities of your life, or like what did you want to do back then is most likely the answer of what you truly wanted to do. So for you, that was already a path that was rubber stamped by society, especially in India. That you're gonna do software engineering, and go to MIT, and which is like a dream path, so to speak, for like an Indian parent, especially in that generation.
Oh, for sure.
So would you agree that people know eventually like what they want usually, and if you're truer to yourself earlier, it's actually easier than going through all this mid-career, like, you know what I mean?
I agree. I think early on, you kind of know what brings you joy.
Like teaching brought you joy, but you
Yeah.
had that lens of, okay, this is, so there are multiple things that can bring you joy.
That's
right?
what I feel like. Sometimes early on, I think you know what kind of things bring you joy, and it's never just, very rarely is it one thing. There's always multiple things that can bring you joy, and you should have those. Like, it doesn't necessarily mean that's what you end up doing, but I think when you end up being unhappy or something is when you get so focused on other things that you forget that the other things at the end of the day should be a means to an end to get you the joy you like. Now, if you can mix that joy with your work, that's great. You've probably hit the jackpot in some sense, right? If you can mix that joy with your work and do the standard of living you want with all of that, that's like high jackpot, great. Sometimes you can't. Like sometimes you might have a joy, you might have certain passions, but it doesn't mix. You don't have the aptitude, or that joy is not financially great enough, or things like that. Then you sometimes end up doing something else. And again, this comes from like a place of being lucky or privileged or whatever. Like sometimes it's just like if you have economic hardship, you just do the job you have to do.
Correct.
And if you have to support a family, you have, like, that's all different. And I think that we've been very lucky throughout.
Okay.
But in that sense, I think I lost focus on that for sure. I think when I entered Amazon, I was just like, let's work. And I forgot what brought me joy. I forgot that. And I became a little bit like resentful towards like I love home. And I was like, people bring me joy. My family brings me joy. I used to not visit my brother, even though like I was in the US because of him, but I used to not visit him.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I'm here because that way we are in the same country. But what was the point? I was not visiting him I used to visit him once every year max, right? And I was like, what nonsense. And I used to not go home quite often back to India. So I was just like very like, I was also 20, so you kind of forget a little bit of all this. You're like, whatever, I'm partying or like I'm enjoying life. So I think that was a phase where I was like, what brought me joy? Like I was looking at a very long-term goal of like, okay, I'll work, and I will hit this point, and then I can do everything that I enjoy. And then slowly over the last 4-5 years, that has come crashing down, and I've gotten back to like, what do I enjoy? Do that, and like think of everything else as a means to an end.
Agreed. And I think like my journey over the last couple of years since, exiting big tech and exploring a few different options has been this separation of purpose and provision in my life. There are, like in society, I think there's a pressure to align your purpose and provision at like already at 18, especially in a place like India. If you're 12 and you're like, oh, I want to be an engineer, at 16, 18, society will be like, you said you want to be an engineer. Even though something else might be, more for you. And obviously provision is very important, right? Like, and it's a privilege to think about how that. However, as you said, there are other ways you can find joy and purpose in your life. And separating that purpose and provision, I think leads to more emotional sustainability in terms of how you can manage your career. There always will probably be a job or a boss or something that, that you will not enjoy, even if it was purpose driven for you. So when you have other aspects that drive your purpose, like for example, what we're doing right now really serves my purpose, and like my writing serves my purpose. But my provision right now is more from my investments and, the travel company that me and my wife are trying. So that, of course, it's a privilege. However, early on, if you think about your purpose and provision separation, and it doesn't have to be that way, but I think to play a longer innings, so to speak, and a more sustainable, emotionally sustainable innings for your career, I think having that perspective that this job is not everything for me. It's not my purpose and my provision and my self-esteem, and it is a part of my life, and it provides, and it's a very important part of my life, and I want to do well in it. But maybe I don't link everything in my purpose to, especially a job in today's environment as well.
For sure. And like, it was interesting because for me, my job was never what defined me. I worked hard.
You had that perspective. You're great at compartmentalization.
I would say I worked hard. It's not like I did. Like 9 to 5, I was intense. I was probably one of the most intense people at Amazon.
I can vouch for that.
Yeah. And yeah, for me, my job was never what defined me, I think. Like, like I said, I used to work hard. It's not like I didn't work hard, and it was a provision. I never thought of it as something that defined me or something like that.
Who gave you that perspective?
Of not defining myself by the job. I don't know. I think for us growing up, my family never looked at it as like, your definition is your personality, and your definition is what you do with people, not what you do for work. Like everyone referred to different people as, oh, this person's kind, this person's this. Those were the characteristics. Never like, oh, this person does this. Like everyone was like, yeah, everyone's in business. That you just run the business. That's the side. But what do you do as, like, my dad was known as, like, he was very social. He was very like talkative, and that was the thing. My mom was very like kind and very like quiet, but very like prim and proper, but kind, and like just like that. My one uncle was known as the jovial one. Like there was never any definition of like, oh, this person's work is this, or like, it was always who you are was your personality, not your work day to day. So I think for us it was always work is work, and that was also a thing at work. Like at home, like dad would come back, he would be like, okay, work is done, now it's time to be with the family. Like, don't let work kind of spoil everything. And obviously as a business owner, it's very hard. Like he would get calls at the dinner table, and sometimes you would take them, but sometimes you'd also be like, no, call me tomorrow. He would respectfully tell the client, I'm at dinner, call me tomorrow. It showed that you can have work, but it's on the side. Like when you're here post work, be present with the people you want. And so that kind of influenced me. And so for me, it was work is a provision. But what screwed up, I think, at Amazon early on was I still thought of work as a provision, but I forgot that the rest of the time I should do purpose, right? The rest of the time for me I was just idling through life at that point. I wasn't like visiting my brother. I wasn't visiting home. I had a few friends in Austin, but they were very like, and it shows, right?
A few of them.
Yeah, like I think out of all of them, I'm connected only to 2 people still, right? So that shows that those friendships were not deep. And generally, I was someone who was, yes, I was not the most emotionally vulnerable person, but I was still very
You cherish connections.
Yeah, I cherish connections, and they might not originally have been very emotionally deep, but like they were built on a lot of shared experiences and different things like that, and helping each other or whatever. And I think that was not there in Australia. It was very transactional, very like, yeah, we're here to just live it up a bit. And so that's where I was like, work was still a provision, but I was not getting anything purposeful done in life. And I was just coasting through in some sense.
Does economic prosperity early on, like I mean, there are no complaints with the kind of financial upbringing I had, financial background that my family had, especially in India. However, do you think like economic prosperity helps you delineate that whole purpose provision early? Like a lot of people I know in India, especially, are obsessed with the job or the financial standing or business or whatever, like that aspect of career. So and like it's quite unique, I think, especially in a place like India, to have that perspective early. So do you think where does that stem from for you?
I think it's true. I think partially it's I have this very weird theory that like if you think of life as a ladder, you climb some rounds in your lifetime, right? Like you start at one round, and then over your lifetime, generally you'll progress compared to the previous generation in most cases, and you'll climb a few rounds. If let's say the average rounds a human climbs is X, like let's say 3, to go way above the average, I feel you have to come from two places. Either you come from great hardship, so your inherent ambition is driven by fear,
Yeah.
and such strong fear where you outrun everyone, right? Like a lot of CEOs have come from very hard backgrounds and things like that, and it's because they're just like running away, right? And it's like that fear drives them throughout. Like one bad step, and they fear that they'll be back at square one. Even though they've gone
Fear plays a large role in corporate careers.
even though they've gone so far that one bad step is not going to get them back to square one, but like it's just there, right? Like there's this interesting thing because we watch football. Like there was the same thing on Luis Suarez. Like every time he has bitten people has been when he has been at a very important match where it's make or break, and it's like in his mind, the psychologists say in his mind it's like if I fail here, I will be back to the favelas.
Yeah.
Right? And so for me, it's paramount that I succeed. So he will do anything at that point. Right? So that is like fear in some sense. And the other people who go way above the average is when you start at a very high rung, and then suddenly you have a network effect where any idea you want suddenly has so much resource behind it that you can make it a success. So I think that's one part. But coming back to my thing, for me, it was a combination. Like, yeah, so I don't think I've overachieved in the rungs, but I think when you're in what you'd say upper middle class or whatever, there is a certain like you're not fearful of your roti kapda makan.
Yeah.
So in that sense, you
Basics.
in your basics, you're not fearful of your basics, and that you'll land up somewhere. That there is a support system and stuff like that. So one is that for sure, but the other thing is, for me, finance was important there's a certain way I wanted to live, but it was never very important because I think my parents put that into me is, yeah, we were well to do in Porbandar, but it's like you're a big fish in a small pond, right? Like I had family in Bombay, I had family all over the world, and they were way much better, right? Way much better, right? Like,
But you had those references early as well, which not a lot of people from our part of the world do.
And now there it could have been different, right? I could have been driven by ambition and being like, no, I want to like get to that level. Or I think my parents were very like, yeah, theek hai yaar, that family is doing well. We are also doing well.
Yeah.
We also
Like
have a
perspective on what do you need.
Yeah, we have a great life. And I used
Yeah.
to see that because I used to be like, yeah, they have a great life and they're in Bombay, but they are stressed. Like I can see the stress.
Yeah.
And I see my parents.
Money isn't everything.
And see my parents, and I'm like, yeah, these guys are so chill. Like life is so good. Bloody tailor comes home, barber comes home, you go to the beach in the evening. What do you want? This is the life. You feel lonely, you call up your family friends that you had for 4 generations. You say, chal, let's go somewhere. Like what else? This is the life. Like why do you need anything else? Like as long as you have enough money to cover all that, life is set. And so that way I was like, there was ambition, but there was never like over ambition in the sense of like go chase it in a way. Like just also remember that you have what you have and it's nice. It's just in some ways it was just taught early on to be content in that.
That's amazing. Your family does definitely seem to have this mindset of sustainability, from a very young age, which I think a lot of people who are burnt out or exhausted didn't have. But something that you talked about that was very interesting to me, and something I talk about as well with clients and in my book as well is this evaluating your journey based on where you started. As you said, there are you framed it very interestingly that either you come from supreme privilege or from extreme hardship. To you see a lot of that in sport where biggest footballers in the world come from extreme hardship and make it big. So that fear-driven mindset. However, for a lot of people who are in the middle, like I grew up in Shillong, like I know maybe 3 other people who've made the kind of journey I've made. And when I was when I left big tech and there was a year where I was like, do I go back, not go back? Obviously, the societal endorsement of a job in big tech, the money. But one of the things that helped me anchor myself was that I come from Shillong. I come from where I come from. And, it's one of the most complex geopolitical regions. Growing up there, the journey I've made across, like living across 3 different continents, which I'd never imagined, right? So having done all that, now I was being called to do something else. And to begin with, it was very hard for me to kind of make my peace with that, in the sense that, I will not have that societal rubber stamp of a job at Google or that amazing salary that brings. And but a lot of people don't have the perspective that you talked about. So I think it's very important to also evaluate your journey based on where you came from, and not based on, like, I was at Google with people from across Ivy Leagues and I was like, but I don't want to do that, right? Like, so you don't need to force yourself down a particular path.
For sure.
Yeah, and you should have perspective on where you started, because that is your own unique journey. Like,
no, that's very, and I think more importantly, one is to be kind to yourself. You have to see where you started.
right.
But I think people forget that when you're evaluating someone else, you have to have the same perspective.
Correct.
That is, and I have this thing like I get along with most people, like
Insanely so.
like I am and people are always like, "Arey yaar, you never take offense, you never take this, like you let people run over you." I think that I'm like, yeah, sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. Now, for me, it's also like, and I've seen this. Like, yes, there are times people have taken advantage of me in a very big way, but then there are times where I see people get very irritated on small things, and I'm like, dude, you're just like, why are you letting a small thing affect you? Right? You have no idea of the history of what happened to that person today and why they did something they did in the evening. Right? They might have just had a shitty day.
Yeah.
And very recently, like, there was a friend's birthday, and like I told someone else to get the cake. Usually I would get it, but I was damn busy. And I told someone else, and they didn't get it till 3 p.m. And I was like, and then at 3:30 they said, I don't think I can get it. And I was like, dude, I have a fully packed day. But I was like, screw it, I'll do it. I'll figure it out. And I was telling this to Cyrus, and Cyrus was like, yeah, but that's because you always take up the responsibility, and like you will not even tell that person that he bailed on you tonight when we meet. And I was like, yeah, it's okay, man. It's like one thing. And I was proven right, because that guy had a really bad day. He was even working at the birthday party. And I was like, okay, see, he did have a bad day. Like,
You believe in benefit of doubt.
right?
In every
I'm
way.
like, you never know where someone's coming from. Right? Unless they mean badly, and I don't think most people mean badly.
Yeah.
Right? And so unless you feel that they mean badly, it's just let it be, and like let it, and don't let it affect you. I think a lot of people let small things keep on like adding up. Like, oh, this guy did this. That. Why are you thinking of what they did? Just think of yourself. Let it go. Let it pass. Don't let it affect you. It's easier said than done. I think for me, it's like, I think people get more affected. For me, it's just early on we were taught like, it's okay. Let it pass. Don't let small things keep affecting you. It's not worth it.
So what was Amazon like? You described it was a bit
Oh.
intense. Talk to me about what Amazon, what it taught you. Uh, Also, were you ever exhausted or burnt out or jaded or? So yeah, just talk to me about what Amazon was like and how that also brought you onto the path that you're on now.
I think very interesting. I think Amazon and Games to Win were very similar early on, uh, for different reasons. Amazon because of its culture, Games to Win because of India culture, and Amazon's obviously everyone's heard it's like intense this that, but I loved it. I was one of the few idiots who really loved Amazon. I spent like 5.5 years there, and again, I was also very lucky. Like I'll say the way I liked it and the way I did it was I set boundaries. I used to work 9 to 5, post 5:15, 5:30. You could not contact me. There was no email. There was no text on my phone. Nothing. You
So
want
did Amazon teach you compartmentalization or you? Because I think that's your superpower.
Yeah.
Since we're on it.
I
So
think just
where
from
do you
the
get that
start,
from?
I think that was something we saw at home. Like business, in business families, you can either be run by the business or you can run the business. So I think we very early on saw our dads and all sometimes getting run by the
I
business.
think my father could do well with that perspective.
And we would see it. They would sometimes get run by the business, but many times they would be like, no, I am running the business. Let me decide when you get your help.
Yeah.
Right, and stuff like that. So I think that was early on. I also saw my brother, right? My brother he would not set boundaries. He would overwork, he would this. And so I was like, no, that's not what I want to do. Right. So I always give my brother credit for you've made, like I get to make a decision after one practice decision. So I am great. Like I saw one good or bad thing, now I get to take a second chance. So I have a great like follow through this mechanism. So that way compartmentalization was just, and it was also boarding school. Boarding school teaches you a bad way of compartmentalization, which is things happen. It's not like boarding school is rosy. You feel homesick, kids feel homesick. Bad news comes from home in the form of letters, and those are the worst, right? You get a letter saying such and such thing happened, right? There's no phone call, nothing allowed. You can't meet your parents till the next time you go back, right? So if like your uncle, like my grandfather passed away on like my Parsi birthday once, and it was just, you had to deal with it. Like it's just in a letter, that's it. And one of my favorite uncles in Ahmedabad passed away in an accident, and I still really love him a lot. And so you can't do much there, right? But how do you, as kids, 25 boys, all freaking emotionally unavailable, how do they deal with it? They distract you, right? Because nobody wants to sit in sadness, right? Even if I see someone sad, I think that's a very bad habit I picked up in boarding school. I like it, but it's bad because I go on a very extreme. Is I can't see anyone sad next to me. Right? For me, if there's sadness around me, I need to fix it. I can't sit in that. Right? And so that is the reason why I immediately start helping, or like people get irritated. They're like, dude, I just need to remove my frustration. I don't need a solution. I'm like, sorry, but I have to provide a solution. Like, I need to resolve this frustration.
So in a way, the Amazon culture was good.
Yeah.
Very solution driven based on whatever I
Yeah.
saw as a second hand.
Yeah, I was like, this is great, fits me. So I think that is where you learn compartmentalization of like either you compartmentalize by ignoring it and like distracting the friend who is sad, or you try to solve it. Many times you can't
And then you solve it. And that's why
Yeah.
you're so task oriented.
Yeah. So you either solve it or you can't, because like I'm not going to revive someone from the dead. So you distract them, right? And you just make them forget about it, make them do some other thing. So that's my way to cope was always like, okay, I'm done with this. Let's start doing something else. Distract the mind, let it go. It will automatically in the subconscious deal with itself from it. Right. So that was a good thing for me of how to compartmentalize. But otherwise, Amazon was great in the sense of I also was very lucky that I could set boundaries. Like I was somehow, I don't know why, but I was, and it's very different. You've seen this. Like in my personal life, I am very low boundary setting. Like I do not set boundaries. I'm not at all conflict driven at all. In work, I'm not conflict driven, but I'm very direct. Like I don't give a
Shockingly so sometimes.
I am like, we are here to work. We are not here to, we are not a family. We are a IPL team or a football team. We are here to win the championship.
As a business owner, and I think that's good for the employees to know.
I'm like, as long as you are hitting your career records and we are as a team hitting the championship, alignment is there. Not there, let's leave. Like, don't. And I should tell everyone this. And so that way, I was very good at like 5:50. I set the boundary. I'm out. You need to get in touch. You have to call. And in tech, thankfully, nobody calls. Call means you're really impeding on personal life.
Yeah.
Right? And like banking and all this wouldn't work. They would straight up call. But like in tech, you don't call unless it's actually emergency. So nobody would call. And I had no email or text on my phone. So everyone just knew, okay, Kaivan won't respond till 9 a.m.
Wow.
But between 9 and 5, you'll get a response in 2 minutes. It's like that you will get. But so I was just very good at, and I was very lucky. Like, yes, I showed a high bar, so people trusted me. Like, I could walk out at 3 p.m. on days, and nobody would doubt, okay, the work is finished. Like, I set a bar that's the other thing. Once like I always tell people, you have to set a stamp of authority. Okay, people just inherently trust you. That Kaivan said that this should be done, it's going to be. Like, if it's not
Credibility.
done, if it's not done, there's a very credible reason why. And just no doubt. You should leave no doubt to that. That's thankfully both I feel in personal and professional. Where I'm like, don't leave doubt, I didn't try my best. And so that way I was very lucky. I could set a stamp. And I was in teams where I was lucky enough where they couldn't pester me post 5:30. Right, that was the lucky part of it. Like, now my brother works at Amazon, he overworks. I think he also doesn't have boundaries in some sense. But in that sense, that was very lucky. Even at Games to Win in India cultures, you work till 8 p.m. I used to come in at 9 and I was like, I am out at 5, man. I'm going to go to the club and swim now. You don't have a life, not my problem. Like, and once I remember there was this very funny thing that happened. Like, my parents had come to Bombay and we had this thing of like a whole set of rules of when to release a game or a new version of the game.
Yeah.
And one of those rules was you cannot release post 6 p.m. So don't release post 6 p.m. But the quality assurance team had to be one of the signatories and they took pride in only signing post 6 p.m. So that the game it was just like a funny quirk of the company.
Yeah.
And I was like, chal, I get it. And whenever I had to release a game, I would be okay. It's a funny quirk. We'll stay till 7, 8 and we'll do it. But my parents were visiting that week and we had a dinner at work. And said, bhai, today I can't. I need this done. By 6, I have to go home and help. And so I came in early, not 9. I came in at 6 in the morning. I said, I'll do one whole revision, give it to QA in the morning and all of this. They're like, yeah, I specifically went down to their floor, said, bhai, I know you guys love all this, but today can't. Like, parents are coming from out of town. And they still fucked up. I got pissed. I was like, I don't give a shit. I left at 6 p.m. It's like, I don't care.
But you said games couldn't be released post 6 anymore, right?
So they used to always...
They still did it.
They would still do it. Like, it was like, we will break this rule. It was like the quirk of the company, like, of the QA team. Like, because they are the last sign-off. Yeah. They'll be like, we'll only give our sign-off at 6:37. And so you have to stay and like, okay, it's funny, whatever. And I didn't launch it. Next day, everyone was like, why did this game not launch? I said, bro, I followed the rule. Post the sign-off didn't come. So they're like, no, but we gave the sign-off at 6:30. And like, I wasn't there in the office. And I was like, but the advantage I had is, again, right, once I'd set the standard, nobody doubted that I was at fault.
Yeah.
Nobody thought that I hadn't put in the work.
So what was the end of Amazon like? How did that happen? Especially being in the US, immigrants, not many people do that. How did that happen?
Thank you so much for making it to the end of the episode. If you enjoyed that, please give us a like, share this with somebody who might relate, and subscribe. You know the drill. Part 1 was all about Kaivan's life up to Amazon, up to the end of Amazon, and in part 2 we go into his journey as a founder in the last few years in the US. So check that out next week. Thank you so much.